Recording and such. Cool. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Today we have an event brought to us by CAIR California on Islamophobia and Muslim censorship in big tech, which is of course mightily relevant to our role as Muslims. A lot of us living in the Bay Area, around Silicon Valley, and especially in the context of this being a hackathon, and we're always trying to create, but eventually a lot of us want to then enter the space of big tech and in this type of industry. And so these are all very relevant things for us to comprehend and understand and navigate as we go into becoming young Muslim professionals, inshallah. So joined us with us today is brother Mohammad Sikandar. He is the Community Engagement Coordinator of CAIR SFBA, San Francisco Bay Area. In this role, he leads the Community Engagement Program, which includes working with community members, leaders, activists, and ally organizations to amplify the work of CAIR San Francisco Bay Area and to accommodate their needs. He is a first-generation Pakistani American currently living in New Jersey with his family. His professional background is in issue-based and electoral organizing. He has previously staffed on numerous statewide and federal political campaigns. During the 2020 presidential elections, Mohammad worked as a swing state digital organizer, working to increase the voter turnout amongst progressive voters. During his college career at Rutgers University, he was an active student leader and founded a nonprofit that promoted civic engagement through community service and philanthropy. Mohammad's passion is in advocating for ethical domestic and foreign policy, voting rights, as well as grooming younger Muslims in the political advocacy space. And so he has some slides set up for us today. He'll give like a 30 to 45-minute presentation, and then inshallah we'll have time at the end for a Q&A from the audience. And with that, I'll give it to Mohammad. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum, Yusuf. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Yusuf, for the lovely intro. Really happy to be here with everybody. Again, my name is Mohammad, and I'm from Council of American Islamic Relations. For those who don't know us, we are the biggest Muslim civil rights organization in the country. Give me 1 second. Yep. We do grassroots civil rights advocacy work. Nationally, we are in 20 states, and fighting Islamophobia is our main thing, whether it be TSA related police brutality or just domestically when Muslim Americans face Islamophobia in and outside their workplace. We've been around since 1994, and so that's us. So first, I'm pretty sure as this is a predominantly Muslim gathering today here, we all are aware what Islamophobia is. But just wanted to throw a slide in there to talk about what really is Islamophobia and what are the different types of Islamophobia that we as young American Muslims face today. So Islamophobia is a irrational fear of Islam and discrimination against Muslims. And it is very common. Over the last few years, we've seen the recent spikes in Islamophobia nationally and domestically. So this is one of the reports that I cited from 2013 to 2015. It's a kind of an older report, but it literally highlights the structural Islamophobia that is being promoted in this country and the way it impacts all of our lives. This is a study done by Council of American Islamic Relations and Center of Race and Gender at UC Berkeley. It shows that 74 groups are identified as using in the US Islamophobia network that is defined by CAIR. Their network is about $205 million. And that's a lot of money that they are spending to promote Islamophobia and hate for Muslims, and just to put an irrational fear in the minds of people. And it shows us a bunch of other findings. One of them is really important. Here it says, we're talking about structural Islamophobia. It talks about how 1 in 10, in about 10 states, there are Islamophobic laws that are literally targeting Muslim Americans. It gives examples of Tennessee and Florida. At the end of this, I'll drop links for these reports so you can, find the source of it and give it a deeper read. And it also talks about how 78 incidents happened over the last few years, which targeted mosques, whether it be like Islamophobic graffiti done, breaking it into masajids. Sometimes, very often, our masajids are facing zoning issues where like communities are stopped from expanding their mosques or building additional facilities to accommodate their growing congregations. Um, so the reason I put this study out and coded this is it's very important to see the ever-encompassing effects of structural Islamophobia and how it's everywhere. So we can trickle down into how, especially in tech and censorship, how these companies work to promote Islamophobia and make money off of it, essentially. So we're going to talk about censorship by big tech and social media companies. Recently, we've been all aware about the Palestinian genocide taking place in the village of Sheikh Jarrah. That's when some of the most prominent censorship from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok were highlighted by Palestinians and Muslims in general trying to raise awareness on the issue of Palestine. Some of the numbers that we saw in these recent incidents were in a report by the Attack on Palestine. This report is called the Attack on Palestinian Digital Rights, and it was conducted by the Arab Center of Social Media Advancement. They recorded over 500 cases of censorship and free speech violations against Palestinians across social media platform just in 13 days. According to them, 46% of these censorship cases were on Instagram and 47% of them were on Facebook. So when you look at it, how Palestinians were raising their voices to fight evictions and an occupation, social media is one of their few tools. But systematically, they were being censored and stopped. Accounts were being deleted, the reach was being minimized, and the algorithms were forcing people to make sure that their stories and their posts are not getting any reach. Some of the prominent cases we saw in the past few days, just gonna hop to the slide real quick, where these cases, you probably heard about them on social media. Muna Al-Qard and Mohammad Al-Qard, they're very famous journalists and activists from Sheikh Jarrah. They were behind some of the most, they are one of the most powerful Palestinian voices in the recent evictions happening in Sheikh Jarrah. Both of their social media accounts were permanently, they were suspended and banned due to a violation of hate speech. Now, what is hate speech, right? We talk about, so the concept of hate speech and freedom of speech are very complicated, right? But the Facebook's guidelines define words like Zionism as hate speech, even though we know that Zionism or being anti-Israel does not make you anti-Semitic. So some of the cases we saw, and then there was outcry from a lot of other activists and allies, and both Muna and Mohammad got access back to them. There's also an example of Hinda Qudari. She is one of the few journalists from the Gaza Strip. Her stories, she says, where she would traditionally get 600 views, 6,000 views on her stories got minimized to 300. People were just not seeing posts. I personally saw this where when I was posting about the Palestinian, so when a lot of people were posting about this, they were not getting the same reach that traditionally their social media accounts would have. We can always, sorry, I'm just gonna go back. There's other cases. One of the most prominent one was PayPal and Venmo, who are both one company, were blocking transactions that had Palestine or Syria in them. When people asked about that, their accounts were being permanently deleted or suspended as well, just for saying Palestine. And then Syria, again, Muslim majority companies who are again seeing the systematic suppression of digital rights. So it has been, here are some other numbers that I got from the Palestinian Digital Rights report, saying that the social media cases, if we break them down, so 50% of those reports were from Instagram, 35 Facebook, 11 Twitter, 3% did not have sufficient information, and then TikTok had 1%. And then when you get into causes of these takedowns, you see no cases without a prior warning, 46%, unspecified 10%, hate speech 11%. Again, community guidelines is 20%. So you look at this data, right? What are community standards? Well, the way it is structured is like, as Palestinians or as Muslims who are raising awareness for Palestine, you can't really raise your voice because it violates the community guidelines set by these big corporations like Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and many more. So I know I'm cruising through it. So if you have questions, please start dropping them in the chat. One other thing I would talk about right now is like the corporate culture that a lot of times we see in tech is like very microaggressive and Islamophobic towards Muslim. A lot of our sisters get questions about their job, which are very tone deaf. These big corporations and big tech companies have a happy hour culture, right? Where after a manager would invite all of their co-workers out for drinks. And if you're somebody a practicing Muslim and you refuse that, like they take it a certain wrong way. Something other I've experienced myself is recruiters asking you to trim your beard or shave your beard so you look more presentable towards companies when you are going through the interview process. Then again, there's always lack of accommodation when it comes to like prayer breaks. During Ramadan, if you have requests to adjust your hours to make sure you can participate in the month of Ramadan. So a lot of these big companies have a hard time just like grasping that concept. So you see all of this happening in big tech right now, where these are like these giant multi-billion companies are suppressing Muslim voices and minimizing them and it really affects the way we people do perceive us, whether it be online or in a workplace. Other examples that do come to mind is like in India, when we talk about Kashmir, the Stand with Kashmir is a recent example we got. Their Instagram account is restricted and their website has been restricted in Kashmir. So people can get information about what kind of activism is happening in the US, crying for the help of Kashmiris. So like, and Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, these big companies are doing nothing about it, even though like, there has been a lot of petitions, but once governments lean on these big corporations to restrict something, especially social justice causes or a cause for liberation, they get suppressed easily, which is a violation of the First Amendment and the freedom of speech, speech rights that like every person has. And a lot of these big tech companies very often share data with governments that is used to be spy on. We all remember Muslim Pro app and how they were selling data to US government. It happens a lot during Facebook. One of the incidents that was recorded earlier in this year was during the Sheikh Jarrah protests. A lot of people, the Israeli government leaned on Facebook and other these big companies to share their information with them. So a lot of people got texts. Listen, we know you were at Al-Aqsa. We will be proceeding charges, or you'll be getting detained or arrested for just being there. That does not mean that they were doing anything illegal or just peacefully protesting. So these are the general trends we see in big tech, and it's very important to be aware of them as you all step into that corporate culture, and why it's important to fight internally. Why it's important to be visibly Muslim, or even if you're not visibly Muslim, you speak up every time. Like you are, if a manager is making a passive aggressive, microaggressive comment about your faith, your practices, you're making sure you're reporting that and recording that to make sure that it's not, even though you might not mind it that much, somebody after you might get it worse, because this toxic work environment trickles down to worker after worker. So that being said, Muslims, we dominate the tech field. A recent survey said there's about 300,000 Muslims in the Bay Area. About 20% of them do work in tech. So we are a powerful workers block in the industry. So the way we impact and organize and fight for our religious rights and our liberties, it's very important. That being said, this was the gist of the things I wanted to talk about. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, do let me know.
Okay, thank you so much, Mohammad. That was an excellent presentation, very informative. I know we had one chat question. Yeah, right here. So one of our audience members had a question. Is there a team that aggregates this data for CAIR, and where is this data from? And I think he had sent this around the question, or around the slide that you were showing, I think a lot of the data. So yeah.
So thank you for that question. So the data I used was that one report I coded was the attack on Palestinian digital rights, and it was done by the Arab Center of Advancement of Social Media. The other data I used was CAIR and UC Berkeley's Center of Racial and Social Justice. But yes, nationally we do have a team that does research on Islamophobia, and then we do yearly reports. Some of the reports we do is like school bullying, to see how many people are are facing discrimination in school from their peers because of their religion. And then we do national data polls every year. That includes every they use all the incidents we report. If you go on our website nationally, you can read the 2021 reports and how hate crimes have gone up in America. Islamophobia has gone up in America, and we break it down incident by incident, location by location, office by office. So every time we do get an intake about a complaint, we make sure we document it so we can publish those numbers at the end of the year.
Yeah, that makes sense. The participant who asked that question, does that kind of give a good answer? Is there anything you wanted to follow up on? Let me see who asked this question.
Yeah, it was a great answer.
Okay.
What's it called? And is there a place, I know you mentioned a link, right? Is there a place we can follow up for this data after the meeting?
Yeah, I can drop my email in the chat, and feel free to like send me a quick email, and I can definitely share you all the resources I compiled over the past few days.
Cool, awesome.
All right, cool. Also, Mohammed, is that okay for anyone who wants to contact you
Of course.
to use this email?
Again, my email is open to a lot of my work is working with students, making sure like we are accommodating them, especially if you are facing Islamophobia on your college campuses by your professors, in your workplace. We want to make sure that you have us as a resource, that we are open to help you out any day. More than happy to talk to your administration with you regarding your needs. If you need, more prayer rooms or better accommodations, or you're feeling unsafe as a Muslim American on campus, which very often happens. We are there. I'm personally there. Feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to help you out.
Awesome, thank you. I had one question messaged me to me in chat. Do you have any advice or suggestions for Muslim employees in the Bay Area looking to organize internally against Islamophobia in the workplace or corporate complicitly in general?
Yeah, I think it's very important to like be, proud of your identity. Firstly, it's like embracing yourself and what your values is very important. Secondly, be loud with it. Make sure you talk to your HR about this and you're documenting every step of it. I think the documentation is very important. A lot of these big companies are scared of backlash every time. And, talk to us. I feel like it's very important for individual to individual basis on what hostility you are facing at your workplace. So how can we help you? We just want to make sure we're there for you. Other than that, talk to other coworkers. If other people, more than one person feels the same way, then it is a problem. Then it's a pattern. And then stick together, contact us, and we'll be more than happy to help you out to make sure that your workplace is not Islamophobic, microaggressive, or toxic towards you, and they're appreciating you for the work you put in, and that you are an asset to the company, and they're not abusing you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Inshallah, I hope that answered the question. Shams, you have a question? Go for it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a side topic, but a lot of the time people like on campus are afraid to, speak up within like certain activism, in fear that they will be like put on like carry mission. I guess there's two questions here. Like, how would somebody navigate that? And the second thing is, what kind of impact does like canary mission have on students and people who are applying for jobs?
I think it's very important to recognize that Canary Mission is a website that has been widely debunked for just straight up making scenarios, making lies up about suppressing Palestinian activist voices. Again, it's a risk you have to take, right? But remember, just because you are denied employment or you are fired from your job, that is against the law, just because for your political views. So make sure that if that happens, you reach out to an attorney. If you have no one, instantly reach out to our office and we'll be more than happy to help you out. People don't realize that you're scared of them firing you, but if they do fire you, that's illegal and against the law. So yeah, I think Canary Mission, the hype has definitely died down. I knew over 2013, 2014, it was a huge thing where or a little later than that, actually, don't quote me on the timeline on that. It was something that companies was using, but it is something that has been debunked. So make sure your messaging is right. You are not being problematic with the way you craft your message, the way you are present, the idea you're fighting for, and be honest and true. At the end of the day, what's in your kismet, you're gonna get it, right? So yeah, just be honest about it. And if you do get laid off or fired because of your activism in a workplace, make sure you contact an attorney, because that's illegal and a lot of people don't understand that. or contact our office.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I actually have like a follow-up question or point about this, something that has been I'm a student at Stanford, and we had a very recently an example of actually an individual who's not Muslim, but she was very involved in Students for Justice in Palestine at Stanford. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard the story now, but she was recently hired by the AP, the Associated Press, and then basically the Stanford College Republicans led a smear campaign sort of uncovering a lot of her activism back when she was an undergrad, her involvement in SJP, and then that kind of facilitated her being then fired by the Associated Press. So I understand your point about, it's something like that is wrong, and seeking, legal help in terms of that professional workplace environment and that kind of discrimination or blatant, misstep. How do you, because the other reason, Shams brought up a good point about Canary Mission is like a lot of our peers, especially for a lot of us as students at our universities, like, this experience and this example with the Stanford College Republicans, these are our classmates and whatnot that are, and honestly, in a lot of ways, coming after us when we speak out about these things. How do you sort of navigate that type of environment or relationship where it's not really like in the workplace, it's more of like, these are our classmates and peers and whatnot? Because I've heard of other Stanford students, and I think similar in the timeline that you were referencing, like a few years ago, that they were put on Canary Mission and people, but there's like, there's a genuine fear of people getting like doxxed and such and whatnot, right? And their privacy information leaked. So how do you go about that?
I think there's one of the important things we are doing is like, we're going to be hosting, and probably sooner than later, a workshop on how to protect your identity as an activist online. And we'll be having an expert come in and talk about it. Me, again, I'm not an expert. I'm a recent, I just got done with my undergrad years a few months back. But honestly, as a student activist, I would tell you this. It's a risk. It's a big jump. I don't recommend it to you if you're not comfortable with it. But remember, like when you're fighting for justice, you're gonna face backlash. But just remember, there's a community behind you, and that will support you no matter what. That if for every one person or two person or 10 people yelling at you, there'd be 50 out there supporting you. So you just have to find your support system and make sure that like, they're aware and you stick together. I think that's the most important part of student organizing. And then thirdly, be smart and be concise about your messaging. So very often you say one thing, but when you are being smeared or doxxed, like they stretch it and make it seem like you said something blatantly anti-Semitic, for example, or anti-American. You can, how about that? But it's very important for you to realize that like, don't let the heat of the moment take over your head. Just have a few talking points, stick to them, make sure they're not problematic, make sure you believe in them. And yeah, I mean, getting doxxed and fired and all of that, it's very unfortunate, but it's the harsh reality we face as Muslim Americans and Muslim American, American Muslim activists and college organizers. So yeah, those are my little tips. I can definitely point you out to more resources if you need them. Somebody from, and one of the most important thing is like, when you are organizing a college campus, consistently talking to the administration, making sure they are aware of what your stance is. So when they do stretch what you were trying to say, you'll be like, no, we had a conversation about this earlier this week. That's being anti-Zionist does not make you an anti-Semitic, for example. Just having that perspective, it's very important. And making sure there's a strategy with your organizing rather than just consistently yelling and screaming.
Yeah, that makes sense. And real quick, it's so interesting that you just mentioned, like, obviously I think all of us in this call, I would hope, wouldn't equate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. But, again, literally a few days ago, so again, like something that's been happening on my campus is our counseling and psychological services recently published like a letter or accusations to the university for anti-Semitic practices. And one of the things that, and this is the service that students go to for, mental health services. And they requested the adoption of a statement that equates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. So I guess, do you have like, that's like such, now we're working on like these levels and structures where it's like these are formal, like the Stanford University institution is now sort of at play in these types of conversations. How does CAIR, or how do, young activists, and maybe specifically young Muslim American activists, sort of like make sure that we're not getting lost into those conversations? Because, for example, like just to add to that, we also had a student who is an incoming freshman at Stanford who is currently in Gaza, and he, as it was being bombed, as Israel was bombing those neighborhoods, and there's genuine fear for his life and for his, well-being. And so, I, along with other members in our SJP, drafted this letter, and it kind of went viral on Twitter and on Instagram. Thousands, if not tens of thousands of people were sending it to the university, and we didn't get any response. Essentially, we really didn't. The only response that we got from the president was actually he sent us a letter to the Muslim community on Eid, and very like nonchalantly kind of mentioned like tension in the Middle East. And we actually, as a Muslim Student Association organization, responded and we're like, listen, you need to take this out. We're not going to send this letter to the entire Muslim community because this is just completely missing the point. But yeah, I mean, we're clearly working with these institutions that I think a lot of the time are not going to listen to us and are not going to give in. And I guess with that, what would you, I mean, you've already given a lot of great advice, but is there anything maybe perhaps in terms of like attacking those larger powers per se?
Yeah, I think like, leaning into like organizations from like Palestine Legal and American Muslims for Palestine, these are some great great organizations that, fully, dedicate themselves to the work for Palestinian liberation. It's important to reach out to them. If you are not connected with them, I can definitely connect you with a few folks. Talking to your administration, writing a letter, I think, please do contact me. We'll talk offline about this and see how we can support you. And just like, I think you guys are on the right track. Just like every time the university does something, you have to make sure there's pushback. Because the rhetoric is changing in the public opinion regarding this whole Israel and the occupation on Palestine is changing slowly. So it's important to capitalize on that. But it's something that's going to take like years to combat. So just like one administration, one organization at a time, you have to keep fighting realistically and just be proud of your work. Like, listen, like as somebody who is a New Jersey native, I saw that Stanford letter as well. So like, I'm really proud of your work, of your fellow organizers' work. It's inspiring. So just keep up that work and like have a solid strategy on what you want to do. And every time you do write a letter or you do want something there, make sure that your demand's there. Like, we need this, X, Y, Z. So making sure, like, even if you're pushing back, you're doing it in a strategic way where like when the administrations do give you half-empty promises or statements, you can hold them accountable. Well, the Muslim students on campus asked for this, and this is what we got instead. So it's very important to like, just recognize this and just like be proud of your work. And Allah puts barakah in honest work, and like, standing up for social justice is a part of our religion, essentially. So just be proud of it and keep doing the work.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, inshallah, I think that's something we can all keep in mind. So yeah, thank you for that. I know I've had like the last couple of questions. If there are any other questions from any of the participants or audience, you can feel free to raise your hand or unmute or put them in the chat, inshallah. As also, Mohammad did put his email in the chat, so if anyone wants any contact or questions after the event, inshallah. But we'll give a couple more seconds if more people have a question. Don't be shy, feel free, raise your hand. Even honestly, you can just unmute if you have a question. And if not, we can wrap up, inshallah. So I'll give it a few more seconds. Or if people are typing, like if is anyone typing a question currently, or okay, I'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, well, it looks like there aren't any more questions in the chat or anybody raising their hand. So thank you, Mohammad. Thank you to you and to CAIR for coming and giving us this amazing talk. You know, obviously these are very important things for us to discuss. Inshallah, I think, you know, one thing that I think about a lot in these types of conversations is this is just the start, right? Like the point of this is to continue to have these conversations and to continue to inform our other fellow brothers and sisters in Islam and in our communities and our campus spaces and whatnot. And so inshallah, we can continue to be interactive with you. You know, a lot of us are students in the Bay Area, so, you know, maybe we can have some collaborative events sometime down the line.
Thank you for having me, Yusuf, and the rest of the team. Sorry, I kind of rushed through the presentation.
No worries.
But I just want to make sure that, like, you guys know that our doors are open anytime. The moment you do feel unsafe, whether it's your workplace, your school, your college, your university, or just anywhere, we will be there to help you. So feel free to reach out to us anytime, and we'll make sure that we want to support like the young professionals in our community. And it's been a great time.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mohammad. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming. Inshallah, we'll have the recording for this up on Facebook and also on our YouTube channel, inshallah. So yeah, thank you all so much. All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.